Ruslan.
I create video games.
Oh, heck yeah. That's sick, dude. That's like every like middle schooler's job is like, oh, I want to work on video games. That's rad. I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's all good. And I work with a larger group called a Christian Game Developers Conference. There's like 1,500 of us in there. And we meet once a year out in Portland, right? So basically there's this big talk that's been going on for like 15 years around this very topic, right? And I've been analyzing CHH because all these discussions that everyone's been having, it's exactly in line with what we need to analyze and kind of take into our community and then kind of dissect it and see how everyone else is gaining unity and how everyone else is, approaching art for the church versus from the church, etc. So I had a few things to say, and I think I might have a question at the end, but I'm just really passionate about it. So let me tell you this.
Okay.
We have, the human condition and the exploration of that is very messy, right? And everyone's at different levels. It's easy to judge someone when you're looking in from the outside, right? Especially if you don't have discipleship, like we've been ranting about the last few days. And the line there is very blurry, right? Especially, I know it's difficult when you're talking about like rapping and stuff, but even more so in some ways, I don't mean to diminish it, right? Because there's a lot that goes into that. But when you have a visual art form, right? And you have violence in video games and, some people struggle with the portrayal of other things, like people being harmed in different ways, right? And the line gets really blurry when you talk about how do you explore this mess versus glorifying it. And I think that the difference is, whether or not Jesus is involved, obviously, right? But people looking on the outside, looking in from the outside, they don't know that, right? An artist isn't supposed to be, I don't know, how do you feel about this? How public should they be about their faith, right? Like Chance, for example, he's not super public about it, right? And that changes a lot, right? Because then, and I believe that half of the burden of interpretation is on the creator, and the other half is most certainly on the person consuming that content.
Interesting. Okay.
So where is that line? The problem in the chat today, the whole chat was blown up because that line is so blurry and people are at different walks in their life. So what would you tell people like that, right? Get discipleship and all these things, but how at different levels should people in the body consume art, right? And how does that look different?
Okay, so one of my favorite movies, and some of you guys are gonna be like, Ruslan, you're a sinner, is The Book of Eli. I thought The Book of Eli was brilliantly done. Denzel Washington, the entire, I don't want to give it away. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it. Super dope movie, violent. The overall premise, I think, works. I think as a Christian, and I'm pretty sure he helped write that story. There's an example of like a violent Christian movie, in my opinion. Now, another example is like Chronicles of Narnia, like direct biblical correlation, completely directly tied in, very well done, top to bottom, written by C.S. Lewis. And so in terms of the fans, there's the tough part is, and this is just so you guys know, one of the reasons why I even really leaned into YouTube is because Loom Hip Hop called me one of the new OGs of Christian hip hop a couple years ago. It was me, Bizzle, Lecrae, and Derek Minor. And I was like by far the least popular person on that list, the least number of subscribers, the least number of followers. But my thought was, hey, if I have influence in Christian rap, I'm instead of running from it, instead of running the title of Christian, I'm going to lean into that harder. And I'm going to influence and drive this community. And by the grace of God, it appears I have Christian influence in like the Christian YouTube space. Like I've all of a sudden become one of the most popular Christian YouTubers, right? Or like top 15 or whatever. I don't know. I don't keep up with the numbers. I literally
started my channel because of you. I put out 2 videos talking to the Christian game development industry and my team. That whole group over there talking like you're talking to the camera. So
that's so dope. And so with that, my heart is like, Christians are so divided within the context of denominations, just segregation till this day, right? Like there's a definitely different, those folks that are in the black church, and Chance and Kirk actually get into that, have a vastly different experience than folks that are in the evangelical church. So there's such a wide spectrum of views, such a wide spectrum of interpretation of secondary issues. And my heart is like, hey, if God's going to give me any bit of influence, let me take that in charge and at least help people think biblically about these things, help people think critically about these things, and ultimately push people back into some degree of relationships and some degree of community, because in community is when you are challenged, right? When you say something hypocritical, in your own head, you may not know it's silly. Like in your own head, you may think that you are so righteous for judging Chance the Rapper, right? But ignoring the fact that your web history got all kinds of sketchy stuff on it, right? You may think you're so justified. But if you have somebody in your life that can challenge you on that, then you'll be like, oh, wait, yeah, no, I ain't really got I don't got no place to stand. Like, I'm a freaking hypocrite. Like, how could I judge this man? And I'm sitting here. And so right now, there's obviously virtual community happening. We're consuming different voices. But I hope that people would get back into discipleship, like you said, community relationship, because I'm way less critical of people when I'm aware of my own sin and I have accountability in my life. And at my age, when you've been walking with God for a while, the sin becomes more sophisticated, meaning that like, I'm not like my sin isn't like, oh, Ruslan went and got drunk at the club, right? And there's like someone took a scandalous picture of me, or like, right. My sin is way more subtle. My sin is like, I was impatient with my wife and I shouldn't have been. I worked too long and didn't spend time with my son and I shouldn't have been. But best believe it's just as amplified. And when I know that my sin is still real, I've been walking with Jesus 20 years, right? All the quote unquote big stuff, the habitual stuff, God's worked through by the grace of God. And we're going to talk about that on Friday in Alan Parr's channel. And I still wrestle with stuff, but by and large, praise God, I'm not addicted. I'm not right. But the sophisticated sins, the little sins, those little things are still big to me, because I have brothers in my life that'll pull me to the side and be like, bro, why do you always come to the gym 3 minutes late? What the heck is wrong with you? Like, every time you go to and like, I got, Daniel Golding and Rich that pull me to the side, like, bro, what are you doing? Like, stop it, And so that's what I mean. It's those little things. But the moment we are aware of our attitude, our sin, our own, just our own shortcomings, I think that is the moment where we could have more grace and compassion on people who may have bigger sins or more sins with more ramifications on them, right? I don't know if that's helping, bro. That would be how I would say, is like, community will reveal to you your blind spots. And the thing about blind spots is you don't know you have them. You don't know they're there. And when your blind spots are revealed, you tend to be way more gracious and humble towards people who sin differently.
So would you say that no Christian should create art without being in discipleship directly? And if so, those who are actually creating art and don't have discipleship, just like it says in the Bible, for those who aren't saved, our primary goal is to get, to get them to surrender their life to the Lord, right? Obviously. So we want to get these folks in discipleship, like Kirk Franklin's doing, right? He's talking to them and this and that. And beyond that, I would say this, community is great digitally, but the moment I got connected physically in person with my small group, and Proven Men and things like that, radically transformed my actions. You got accountability.
Yes.
It's not the same digitally, I don't think.
Yes, I would agree. And I don't like using absolute statements. Like, I don't like saying like, hey, no one should ever step out and make a YouTube channel or write a rap song or make a video game unless they're being discipled. I don't like making absolute statements like that, because that could slip into legalism. But what I will say is, it's in your best interest to have safeguards in your life, right? And it's in my best interest to have men of God around me that don't give a crap about my YouTube page. They don't care. Like, the folks in my life, like, literally don't care. They'll be like, oh, that's cool. Something happened. That's dope. But by and large, they're not sitting there stunting like Ruslan cracked this number of subscribers. They're like, bro, how are you and your wife doing? She's 7 months pregnant. How's she feeling? Are you taking your wife out on walks? How are you doing with that? Like, those are the questions I get, like, on a regular, you know what I mean? And so, I don't like using absolute statements, but I will say we should be if you're Christian, I do believe that you should be in some type of local fellowship, in some type of local community. I understand that it's difficult right now with the pandemic. I understand that not everybody lives in a place where there's maybe a healthy biblical church, right? Some of you guys live in the mountains of Montana and you're just watching this on like dial-up internet. I get it, right? But generally speaking, I would say yes, when I say make music from the church, make video games, make art from the church, I mean from some type of local congregation of people that know you, people that you know, and people that ultimately can help you see those blind spots so that you're just a better human. Like, you're just a better follower of Jesus, right? Like someone that can rebuke you, someone that can correct you. And it's not saying you have to. That's not what I'm saying, right, Michael? I'm not saying you have to. I'm saying you get to. Fellowship is you get to. Local church is you get to. Discipleship is you get to. Some of that is done remotely, right? Like I got like Ray Rock. Like Ray Rock calls me, asks me hard questions. He's in Florida. We do it over FaceTime, right? But he's an amazing man of God in my life. Nick D will call me, right? Amazing man of God. So sometimes that for me is remotely, but the folks regularly, man, are just helpful. So does that answer your question, Mike? I think that's a really good question, and I love that you drove it back home to the point of fellowship and community. Shout out to O'Dane, who's in the live stream. If you're near New York, I don't think they're meeting right now, but O'Dane does a fire creative gathering on Saturday nights called Theology in the Bronx. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on creating like a network of like just different ministries around the country that folks can hopefully get plugged into. Not perfect ministries, not ministries, that I agree with on everything, but by and large, just places people can get plugged into and be known.
Joshua the king came down and bore it all. Yeah, conversations front of the fireplace. All of my mistakes, how do I erase? Wanna operate at a higher pace. Birth pains causing the body to dilate. On a first name basis with the worst pain facing.